If you're over 55, I want you to listen closely, because there are two so-called healthy vitamins sitting right now in your cabinet that may be quietly harming your brain. Most people are told that memory decline, dizziness, sudden exhaustion, or moments of mental confusion are simply aging, but that is not the whole truth. In fact, many seniors are unknowingly increasing their own risk of microclots, poor circulation to the brain, and even silent mini-strokes, not because of their age, but because of the vitamins they take every morning. This may surprise you, but some of the most trusted supplements sold as brain boosters, energy enhancers, and essential nutrients can shift your blood chemistry within hours. And when you're over 55, your brain's tiny vessels simply cannot afford that kind of stress. So let me make you a promise. In this video, I'm going to show you the two most concerning brain vitamins, the ones that can quietly raise your risk. And I'll also show you what I recommend instead, so you can support your brain safely, naturally, and confidently. And if you want a little extra help, I'd love to send you a small gift that complements what we'll talk about today. Just write, "I want to improve my health" in the comments, and I'll read your message personally. You've been told these vitamins are safe, natural, even protective, and I understand why you believed it. For years, the supplement industry has presented these pills as harmless little helpers, especially for seniors who want to stay sharp and independent. But here's the truth I've learned after decades of studying the way the brain ages. The problem is not the vitamins themselves. It's the synthetic forms, the daily megadoses, and the dangerous combinations. Your body is designed to use tiny balanced amounts of nutrients, the kind you'd naturally get from real food. But when you take large doses every single day, especially in man-made forms, they don't behave like nutrients anymore. They act like chemicals. And chemicals can change the thickness of your blood. They can inflame your vessels, and they can quietly damage the smallest capillaries feeding your brain. I often explain it as 3 pillars of risk. When those 3 come together, even mildly, they can create the perfect storm inside an aging brain. And many older adults don't discover this until they begin experiencing dizziness, blurred vision, sudden confusion, memory lapses, or pressure behind the eyes. So let me take you straight into what matters most. Let's begin with vitamin number 2 on my list, the one that surprises almost everyone. There is a vitamin that's marketed as gentle, helpful, even essential for calm nerves, steady energy, and sharper focus. You'll find it in almost every multivitamin for seniors, in nerve support blends, and even in those little energy drinks people take when they feel tired in the afternoon. But here's what almost no one explains. When this vitamin is taken in excess, especially day after day, it can quietly begin to work against you. Instead of calming your nerves, it can overstimulate them. Instead of supporting your brain, it can irritate the tiny vessels that feed it. And in certain people, especially older adults, it can even raise homocysteine, a compound strongly linked to inflammation inside the brain. I see this often. Someone begins to notice little signs, a tingling in the feet, hands that feel slightly numb, a sense of unsteadiness when they walk, or that strange cloudy feeling in the mind that people call brain fog. These symptoms rarely appear suddenly. They build slowly, quietly, as the vitamin accumulates in the body, and yes, older adults are far more vulnerable to this accumulation. As we age, the liver and kidneys lose a bit of their efficiency. They don't clear out excess nutrients as quickly as they once did. So a dose that might be harmless at 30 can begin to overwhelm the system at 60 or 70. And this is why so many seniors feel worse while trying to do something good for themselves. They buy these vitamins with hope, thinking they're supporting their nerves, their memory, their metabolism, but without realizing it, they may be irritating the very pathways they're trying to strengthen. So if your cabinet is full of supplements for energy, nerve support, or mental clarity, this part is especially for you. I want you to breathe for a moment, because the answer is not fear, the answer is adjustment, learning how to use this vitamin safely when it helps and when it's best to avoid it altogether. And I'm going to guide you through that step by step. there is one vitamin that almost every senior has been told they must take. It's praised as the ultimate brain vitamin, the one that will keep your memory sharp, your energy steady, and your nerves functioning as they should. And in its natural form, taken in the right amount, it truly is essential. Your brain depends on it, your nerves rely on it, your entire cognitive function falters without it. But here is the part almost no one talks about, and the part that has quietly harmed far more people than it has helped. Not all forms of this vitamin behave the same way inside the body. Some forms are natural, gentle, and easily converted into the exact molecules your brain knows how to use. They slip into your system like a key fitting perfectly into a lock. Others are synthetic, overly concentrated, and far more difficult for the body to process, especially as we age. These versions must be broken down by the liver, filtered by the kidneys, converted by the cells. And when those organs are already working harder than they used to, that process becomes slower, heavier, and more stressful. So what happens then when the wrong form of this vitamin is taken too frequently or in doses far higher than the body can safely manage? Something very unexpected begins to unfold beneath the surface. The blood can become thicker. Homocysteine, a substance we know is directly linked to stroke risk and vessel damage, can rise, and the smallest, most delicate arteries feeding the brain can begin to struggle under that pressure. I have spoken with seniors who describe the earliest, quietest signs they thought were just aging. A brief wave of confusion that disappears after a minute, a strange blur across one eye that comes and goes, a sudden weakness in the arm or leg that lasts less than the time it takes to make a cup of tea. Episodes of imbalance, tiny microstrokes, or moments where the world feels slightly tilted. These are not simply signs of getting older, they are whispers, steady, gentle warnings that the brain's circulation is under strain. And the saddest part is this: many of these individuals believed they were protecting their brain. They trusted the supplement bottle, they trusted the reputation of the vitamin. They truly believed that taking more would help them stay sharp, stay safe, and stay independent. What they did not know was that the synthetic form, the most common and the cheapest, can accumulate in older adults. It can quietly build pressure within the very vessels we are trying to protect. And because the symptoms are so subtle at first, most people never make the connection. Now, let me be absolutely clear with you. A true deficiency of this vitamin must be treated. Your brain cannot function without it. Your nerves cannot send signals. Your memory, your balance, your mood, all of them depend on healthy levels. This nutrient is not optional, it is essential. But when we take a necessary nutrient and turn it into a daily flood, when we overwhelm the system with more than it can handle, when we use synthetic forms the body struggles to convert, when we combine it with other supplements that alter blood chemistry, that is when we cross the invisible line where helpful becomes harmful. A vitamin can be life-giving in the right amount and quietly dangerous when overused. And this is where so many seniors unknowingly step into risk, not because they've done anything wrong, but because no one ever explained the difference between natural support and synthetic overload. In just a moment, I'll show you how to tell if the form you're taking is safe, which labels to look for, what early signs you should never ignore, and what I personally recommend instead to keep your brain clear, nourished and protected. You deserve clarity, you deserve safety, and you deserve to know the truth about what's going into your body. Let me tell you something I've seen again and again in seniors who come to me for help, something so simple yet so often overlooked. The danger rarely comes from one pill. It comes from the quiet stacking, the slow build-up, the layering of healthy choices that turn into an invisible burden on the body. You take your daily multivitamin in the morning because you were told it's essential. A few hours later, you reach for a brain and energy supplement, hoping to stay sharp. In the afternoon, you drink something fortified, a shake, a flavoured vitamin drink, a little booster. Then, without thinking, you eat cereal or milk that's been enriched, or a snack bar that hides extra doses in the fine print. Not one of these things feels dangerous on its own, and that's exactly why people never question them, but when they come together, it's like turning on several taps into the same small sink. At first, the water flows just fine. There's room. Then slowly, almost unnoticeably, the level rises higher and higher, and until it reaches that silent edge where overflow begins. The surface looks calm, but underneath the pressure is growing. This is precisely what happens inside the body when synthetic vitamins accumulate. You're not just taking support. You may be creating a silent overload, one your liver, your kidneys, and your fragile blood vessels are struggling every single day to manage. I want you to pause for a moment and picture your day from the very beginning. You wake up, you take something, later you take something else. At lunch, something is fortified. At dinner, something is enriched. Before bed, maybe another capsule, because someone told you it would help your sleep or your nerves. Now ask yourself gently, how many sources of these so-called healthy vitamins am I truly consuming? Think of every bottle in your cupboard, every drink in your fridge, every food with a long label full of additions. Most people are stunned, absolutely stunned, when they finally count, because they suddenly see that, without meaning to, they've been flooding their body every single day. And the brain feels that overload first. It's the most delicate organ we have, the one that depends on precise chemistry, stable vessels, and clean flow. When we overwhelm it, even with good intentions, the consequences can appear as confusion, fog, dizziness, memory slips, or sudden episodes that we blame on age. But age is not the villain here. Overload is. And once you understand that, everything begins to make sense and everything becomes fixable. When someone sits with me and asks, Barbara, how do I fix this without throwing everything in the bin? I always tell them the same thing. We start gently. We start with awareness, so let me walk you through a simple, safe way to audit your supplements step by step. First, pick up each bottle you take in a normal week. Don't rush, just read the labels slowly. Look for the specific vitamins we're discussing and notice how often they appear. Often they're hiding under different names, in different blends, in products that promise energy, memory, or nerve support. Next, identify them in all the forms you're using, your multivitamin, your separate capsules, your brain boosters, your fortified drinks, even your breakfast foods. This alone can be eye-opening because most people don't realize they're taking the same vitamin several times a day. Then very gently add it all up in your mind. Ask yourself, how much of this am I giving my body every single day? After that, learn to recognize the difference between synthetic and natural forms. Synthetic versions almost always end in the same predictable chemical names, and they tend to accumulate more quickly in older bodies. Natural forms come from whole food sources or biologically active versions that your cells understand more easily. And remember this because it's important, you are not throwing everything away. You're learning to simplify. You're learning to protect your brain. You're learning to give your body what it can use, not what overwhelms it. If you take medication for thinning your blood, lowering blood pressure, or managing your heart rhythm, please speak with your doctor as you review your supplements. Certain combinations can quietly shift your blood chemistry, and your physician needs to know what you're adjusting. This process isn't about fear, it's about clarity and reclaiming control of your own health. When people ask me, Barbara, if these vitamins can be risky, then what should I do to protect my brain? I always smile because this is the part I love, the part where we shift from fear to clarity, from confusion to confidence. What I recommend instead is wonderfully simple. I start with real food. Your brain understands nutrients that come wrapped in fiber, oils, minerals, and antioxidants, the way nature intended them. A handful of almonds or sunflower seeds will give you balanced natural vitamin E in forms your vessels know how to use. Leafy greens, eggs, legumes, and bright orange vegetables provide gentle, safe precursors of the vitamins your brain actually needs without overwhelming your system. Even something as humble as a baked sweet potato can nourish your nerves far more safely than a synthetic megadose. Then we look at oxygenation and circulation. Your brain is a hungry organ. It needs a constant supply of oxygen-rich blood. A 10-minute walk after meals, a few slow breaths when you wake up, opening a window for fresh air. These small, ordinary habits improve cerebral circulation more than most supplements ever could. Healthy blood flow is one of the greatest gifts you can give your mind. And finally, we talk about sleep. Deep rest is not just recovery. It is the time when your brain clears out waste, repairs damaged cells and resets its chemistry. When you sleep well, your brain washes itself quite literally through a beautiful system called the glymphatic system. No pill can replace that. So imagine this simple triangle: real nourishment, gentle movement and breath, restorative sleep. Together they create the foundation for a clean, steady, well-oxygenated brain. And please remember this, because it brings so much peace to people when they finally hear it. Your brain doesn't need perfection, it needs consistency and less noise. I'd like to share a few stories because sometimes hearing what others have lived through brings more clarity than any science ever could. Not long ago, I spoke with a woman in her early 70s who was taking several brain support supplements every morning. She told me she felt foggy, unsteady on her feet, and occasionally dizzy, and she feared it meant her memory was slipping. When we looked at her routine together, she realized she was taking large megadoses of 2 vitamins from different bottles without even noticing. She simplified, lowered the doses, switched to safer forms, and within a few weeks she told me, "Barbara, I feel like someone turned the lights back on." Her mind felt clearer, and she didn't live in fear anymore. Another gentleman shared that he was terrified of losing his memory because his own father had struggled with cognitive decline. So he reacted the way many people do. He added more and more pills, a multivitamin, a brain booster, a nerve supplement, fortified drinks, sometimes all in one day. When he learned about stacking and overload, he made a decision. Instead of adding more bottles, he would strengthen his foundation. He focused on real food, gentle daily walks and better sleep. After a short time, he wrote to me saying he felt calmer, sharper and much more in control of his own mind. And I want you to hear this clearly. These changes didn't require money. They didn't require exotic products or complicated routines. They required information and a few steady decisions made each day. Your brain responds beautifully when you give it a chance. As we come to a close, I want you to hear something with your whole heart. Your brain is not failing you. It may simply be overwhelmed. So many of you have been told that the answer is more pills, more boosters, more bottles lined up on the counter. But you don't need more and more. You need the right amount from the right sources in a way your body can actually use. And here is the truth I've seen again and again. At 55, 65, 75 and beyond, your brain can still respond. It can still clear. It can still focus. It can still heal. Not through force, but through removing what harms and giving it what nourishes. When you stop flooding it and start supporting it gently, it begins to come back to life. If you would like me to send you a small gift to help you protect your brain, just write in the comments, "I want to improve my health." I will read your message personally. And if this message spoke to you, give this video a like, subscribe and share it with someone your age who needs to hear with absolute certainty that it is not too late. Let me take you now to the fruit I consider one of the most underestimated allies for anyone over 60, the kiwi. This little green gem may look simple, almost ordinary, but inside it carries a kind of quiet intelligence that speaks directly to your gut, your nerves, and even your sleep. I often call it the small fruit that takes care of the whole digestive system, and for good reason. Kiwi is rich in gentle, soluble fibre, natural enzymes, and a beautiful abundance of vitamin C. But what makes it so special is the way it interacts with the microbiota, the ecosystem inside your gut that influences everything from digestion to immunity and even your serotonin levels. And remember, serotonin is the neurotransmitter that helps regulate mood, calmness and sleep. So when your digestion works smoothly, your nights often follow the same rhythm. Over the years, I've met so many older adults who struggled silently with chronic constipation, sometimes going days without proper relief, feeling heavy, bloated and frustrated. I remember one woman who told me she felt blocked in every sense. I suggested something very simple. Start adding 1 kiwi in the evening or enjoy it whole with breakfast. In less than a week, she called me, laughing with relief, saying, "Barbara, it finally works. I feel lighter." And that's what I love about the kiwi, its gentleness. It doesn't force the digestion, it guides it. It invites the bowels to move with ease, softening the process rather than pushing it. This can make an enormous difference for seniors whose digestive systems naturally slow with age. I usually have 1 or 2 kiwis a day. I eat them whole, not juiced. You want the fibre, the enzymes, the structure nature intended. And every now and then, when it's washed well, I'll even eat the skin because it's rich in additional fibre and antioxidants. It may seem unusual, but your gut appreciates the gift. When you support your digestion, you support your sleep. When your gut is calm, your mind becomes calm. When your belly feels light, your whole being feels lighter. That's why I include kiwi in my daily routine. It's not dramatic, it's not flashy, it's simply dependable. The quiet friend that brings balance back to your evenings, your mornings and your rest. The next fruit is one I gently recommend to anyone whose stomach feels tired, overworked or easily upset, the papaya. I often call it the stomach's friend because it has a natural softness, a soothing quality and a kind of quiet intelligence that works beautifully with an aging digestive system. You see, papaya carries natural digestive enzymes, especially one called papain, that help break down food in a way that feels effortless. As we get older, our stomach produces less acid, fewer enzymes, and digestion can become slower, heavier, or simply more uncomfortable. Many people describe this feeling to me as carrying a brick after eating, even when the meal wasn't large. The papaya steps in as a gentle assistant, supporting the stomach and even the pancreas so the body doesn't have to work as hard. I remember an older gentleman who came to me after years of struggling with slow digestion, mild reflux, and a constant heaviness after meals. He loved desserts, cakes, pastries, sweet yogurts, and told me he couldn't finish lunch without something sweet. I suggested a simple switch. Replace those sugary desserts with a bowl of ripe papaya and a squeeze of fresh lemon. A few days later, he told me something that made me smile. He said, "Barbara, my nights feel different, softer, my chest is calmer, I sleep better." And that is exactly what papaya does. It softens the evening, calms the stomach, and brings ease back to the digestive process. For myself, I like to enjoy papaya in the morning or at midday when the digestive system is still active and responsive. I never combine it with heavy sugars, syrups or processed toppings. Papaya is perfect as it is, a simple gift from nature. When you take it gently, it gives back gently. For those of us in our 60s, 70s and beyond, digestion plays a huge role in how we feel throughout the day. When your stomach struggles, your energy dips, your sleep worsens, and your mood becomes tangled. But when your digestion is supported, your whole system, from your brain to your joints, begins to function with more ease. That is why papaya has become a quiet daily companion in my life. It doesn't shock the body, it doesn't push, it soothes, it eases, it reminds your system how to move naturally again. The next fruit is one I call the quiet rescuer, because it works slowly, gently and faithfully, the humble prune. People often laugh when I mention prunes as if they belong to another era, something their grandparents used to eat. But the truth is, prunes carry a wisdom that modern foods simply don't have. They protect mobility, they support the bones, and they prevent something that silently steals energy from so many older adults: stagnation. As we move into our 60s and beyond, the colon naturally slows. The muscles of the digestive tract become less active. Hydration becomes more difficult to maintain, and the nervous system doesn't send signals as efficiently as it once did. This slower movement leads to constipation, discomfort, bloating, and a heaviness that affects far more than digestion. When the colon is stuck, the whole body feels stuck, your energy, your mood, even your clarity of thought. That's why I often say, when the colon moves, the mind clears, because it's true. A free-moving digestive system brings lightness back into your day. Prunes support this beautifully because they contain a unique blend of soluble and insoluble fibre, gentle natural sugars that hydrate the colon, and powerful polyphenols that nourish the gut lining. They don't force the body the way laxatives do. They encourage it, like a friend taking your hand and saying, "Come on, let's keep moving." And here is something many people don't know. Prunes may also support bone strength. Studies have shown that the compounds inside them, especially their antioxidants, help protect bone density in older adults. So while they keep everything moving, they also nourish the very structure that carries you through life. I once worked with a woman in her late 70s who had relied on laxatives for years. She felt trapped, afraid to skip a day, afraid to travel, afraid her body wouldn't respond on its own. I suggested she start with something simple, 2 or 3 prunes soaked in warm water overnight. She began taking them each morning with a bit of yogurt or oats. Within a week, her whole expression changed. She told me, "Barbara, I feel lighter, not just in my stomach, in my mind." That is the quiet magic of prunes. For myself, I prefer them soaked. It softens them, wakes up their nutrients, and makes them easier to digest. I might add them to a bowl of oats, slice them into a salad, or simply enjoy them on their own. I never eat the whole packet, just a small, steady amount each day. That is far more powerful than excess. Prunes remind us that health is not always glamorous or exotic. Sometimes it's the simple, humble foods, the ones our ancestors trusted, that bring the greatest relief. They keep the body flowing, the joints moving, the colon active, and the mind clear. And when you support movement inside your body, everything in your life begins to move with more ease. The next fruit is one most people overlook simply because it sits quietly on every kitchen counter, the apple, or its gentle cousin, the pear. I like to call them the ordinary fruits with extraordinary effects because their power doesn't come from being exotic or trendy. It comes from being steady, reliable, and deeply aligned with what the body needs, especially as we age. You see, apples and pears carry something remarkable inside them, pectin, a type of fermentable fibre that works like a soft, nourishing blanket for your gut. It feeds the microbiota, the tiny organisms that shape everything from digestion to immunity, mood, and even metabolic health. When you nourish these little helpers, they repay you in countless ways. Smoother digestion, calmer inflammation, more stable energy, and far fewer cravings. And here's something most people don't realize: whole fruit with its natural fibre and water does not behave like isolated sugar. The fibre slows absorption, the water hydrates the digestive tract, and the polyphenols protect the cells. Instead of creating sharp spikes and crashes, an apple or pear gently stabilizes blood sugar, something that becomes crucial after 60 when metabolism and hormone sensitivity naturally shift. That's why instead of reaching for processed snacks, cookies, crackers, or those sweet pastries that give a quick lift and then a heavy crash, I always choose something simple: an apple with a handful of walnuts, a pear with a slice of natural cheese. These combinations create a beautiful balance: fibre, healthy fats, and gentle sweetness that nourish instead of draining you. I remember speaking with a gentleman in his late 60s who told me he felt exhausted every afternoon. He thought it was aging, but when we looked closer, the culprit was his mid-afternoon snack, sugary biscuits he'd eaten for years. I suggested he try swapping them for an apple with some almonds or walnuts. 2 weeks later, he came back with a smile and said, "Barbara, I didn't know energy could feel this steady." That is the quiet power of simple fruit. For myself, an apple a day is not a rule. It is a symbol, a reminder that health isn't built on grand gestures but on small acts of consistency. It's about choosing nourishment over noise, simplicity over complication, steadiness over extremes. As I bite into an apple, I think of its journey from tree to hand, unchanged, unprocessed, whole. My body understands it. My cells recognize it. And in a world filled with artificial foods and engineered flavors, that recognition is a form of healing. So don't underestimate these ordinary fruits. Their gifts are subtle, but they are profound. A calmer gut, steadier energy, fewer cravings, and a deep sense of balance throughout the day. And sometimes that is exactly what the body has been waiting for. The way I weave fruit into my day isn't complicated or strict. It's simply a rhythm that honors my body and keeps my energy steady without overwhelming my blood sugar. I always begin my mornings with a small handful of berries. They feel like a gentle awakening for my brain, a soft signal telling my body it's time to come alive. Their antioxidants work quietly, and when they're paired with something warm like oats or yogurt, I feel grounded for hours. Later in the morning or early afternoon, when I want something satisfying but light, I reach for an apple or a pear. I never eat them alone. I always pair them with a small amount of healthy fat or protein, a few walnuts, a bit of natural cheese or some almonds. That combination keeps me full, keeps my energy calm, and prevents that rush and crash feeling that so many people experience with sugary snacks. It's a simple pairing, but it feels like harmony inside the body. When my digestion needs a little support, especially on the days when life has felt a bit rushed or heavy, I lean on the fruits that soothe, kiwi or papaya. A kiwi in the evening or a few slices of papaya at lunchtime feel like a soft hand on the digestive system, calming everything down and helping the body reset. As we age, digestion becomes gentler, and these fruits help carry some of that workload for us. A few times a week I bring pomegranate into my meals, sometimes scattered over a salad, sometimes stirred into yogurt, and occasionally just a small glass of diluted juice. It's not an everyday fruit for me, but it's one I cherish, especially for my heart and circulation. And then there are prunes. They are my quiet helpers, the fruit I turn to when my body needs movement. I usually soak 2 or 3 overnight. In the morning they're soft, sweet, and kind to my digestion. They keep my colon moving, and I've always felt that when the colon moves, the mind clears. One thing I never do is replace whole fruit with juices. Fruit juice is not the same as fruit. Juice removes the fibre, the structure, the balance, leaving mostly free sugar that enters the bloodstream far too quickly. Whole fruit works with the body. Juices often work against it. Adding fruit throughout my day gives me a sense of fullness and pleasure that keeps me from reaching for processed sweets. It brings sweetness without chaos, nourishment without guilt, calm energy instead of spikes and crashes. But I want you to hear this part clearly. You don't need to copy me exactly. Your body has its own needs, its own rhythms, its own preferences. Let my routine be an inspiration, not a prescription. Start with what feels gentle and true to you, and let your body guide the rest. Because in the end, healthy aging is not about rules, it's about relationship. A relationship with the food that supports you, the habits that ground you, and the body that has carried you faithfully through every chapter of your life. As you begin to nourish your body with these fruits, not in extremes, but in steady, loving consistency, something beautiful starts to happen. At first, the changes are subtle, almost quiet, like the body whispering instead of shouting. You may notice that your digestion begins to move more naturally. That heaviness after meals softens, the bloating becomes less frequent, and your belly feels calmer, more at ease. Soon after, you might catch a glimpse of your skin in the mirror and realize it looks just a little brighter, a little more alive. That glow doesn't come from lotions or serums, it comes from within, from cells that are finally receiving the nourishment they've needed for so long. Your energy begins to even out too. Instead of sharp highs and crashing lows, you feel steadier throughout the day, as if your body is learning to trust again. And something else happens, something many people don't expect. Your cravings begin to shift. When your body is well fed, truly fed, it no longer begs for sugar. The noisy desire for sweets quiets, replaced by a gentler, more natural rhythm. It's not willpower, it's biology finally settling into balance. Your mind may start to feel clearer as well. That fog that creeps in during the afternoon, it begins to lift. Thoughts feel more organized, more peaceful. You might find yourself remembering things more easily or feeling more focused when you speak or read. None of this is magic. It's not a miracle cure or a sudden transformation. It's simply what happens when you give your body real food, food it recognizes, food it understands, food it knows how to use. Your cells have not forgotten how to heal. Even after 60, 70 or 80 years, that intelligence is still there. It's written into your biology. Age does not silence the body's ability to repair. It only asks for a different kind of support, gentler, richer, more consistent. When you feed yourself with intention and kindness, your body responds. Every day, in its own quiet way, it begins to rebuild, to rejuvenate, to return to balance. And that's the beauty of this journey. Healing doesn't arrive with a dramatic fanfare. It arrives softly, patiently, through the small choices you make each day, choices that tell your body, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm ready to help you heal. Over the years, I've watched countless people rediscover parts of themselves they thought were gone forever. I think of a man in his early 60s who came to one of my workshops feeling discouraged. He told me that every walk felt like he was carrying sandbags on his legs. His joints were stiff, his breath shallow, and his energy almost non-existent. He believed he was simply getting old. But after adding just a few of these fruits, nothing extreme, nothing complicated, he wrote to me a few weeks later saying, "Barbara, I feel lighter. Walking doesn't exhaust me anymore. I feel like my body is waking up again." And I smiled because that is how healing often begins, quietly. I remember a woman in her 70s, a retired teacher, who struggled with her digestion for years. She told me that meals had become something she feared because she never knew if they would leave her bloated, uncomfortable or drained. She started introducing kiwi in the evenings and a little papaya during the day. Just simple, gentle changes. One day she told me, "I feel calm inside again. My mood has lifted. I feel more like myself." And that touched my heart deeply because digestion is not just physical, it affects our emotions, our confidence, our joy. And then there was a grandmother, 80 years old, full of life, but feeling like her sparkle had dimmed. She started eating wild blueberries in the morning and a small bowl of papaya in the afternoon. One day she looked in the mirror and said to me, "Barbara, the shine is back. I don't know how, but I feel brighter." It wasn't magic, it was nourishment, real nourishment. These stories all share something in common. None of these people changed their entire lives overnight. They didn't follow extreme diets or chase perfection. They simply added small habits, repeated day after day, with love and patience. And that's where transformation lives, not in impossible routines, but in the gentle choices you return to again and again. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to do everything right. You just need consistency. You just need to be kind with yourself. When you offer your body small, loving habits instead of pressure or punishment, it responds in the most beautiful ways because your body wants to heal. It always has. It's simply waiting for you to give it the chance. As we come to the end of our time together, I want to leave you with something deeper than information, something I hope you can carry gently into your life. Your age is not a sentence, it is a story filled with moments, lessons, triumphs, and challenges. And no matter how many chapters have already been written, you can still rewrite the ones ahead. You are not finished. Your body is not finished. Your spirit is certainly not finished. These 6 fruits I shared with you today are not rules or restrictions. They are invitations, small doorways back to energy, clarity, ease and joy. You don't have to adopt them all at once. You don't need perfection. You just need a willingness to begin. Gently, kindly, patiently. And if this message touched your heart in any way, if it sparked even a small feeling of hope inside you, I'd love to offer you a little gift to support your journey. Just write in the comments, I want to improve my health. I'll read your message personally and I'll send you something simple, a small gesture to help you take your next step. And if you found comfort, clarity or encouragement in this video, I'd be grateful if you'd give it a like, subscribe and share it with another senior who might need a little hope today. We rise together through community, compassion and shared wisdom. Before you go, take one slow breath with me. Feel your chest rise, feel your body soften, and remember, it is never too late to begin again. Your body is still listening, it is still capable of healing, and it still wants to carry you through a life filled with purpose, peace and joy. Thank you for being here.